ready for connection, and when you get to your connector, you have the minimum amount of time required to heat that up, because otherwise you can start melting plastic and stuff. At this point in time, I also need to point out, I talked about polarity. On these wires, I don't know if you can see it, there's one wire is black, one has a white stripe. Your white stripe is going to be your positive wire. Black is always your negative. Negative is ground. That's important because these cameras are basically DC, so they use polarity. And the reason that's important is because you'll need to match up the white line wire to the red wire on your connector. If you don't do that, your battery system will not work, and then you'll have to go through and reverse these connections. For me, it's really important because just as long as you're consistent within your project, but for me it's really important because I'm wiring this up to work with two cameras. Basically, either any of my 3 batteries will work on my partner's or my camera. But here in a second, I'm going to show you how to tin the tips of your wires, and we'll go from there. Now, I know you can't see my face, but tinning, and this one, normally I'm going to speed up, but tinning, you put a little drop of solder on the tip of your gun, and because of the flux, the moment you touch, you see that smoke? What it has done now is it has actually sucked the burning of the flux. It's cleaned the wires, and it has actually sucked the solder up into that wire, so it's now prepared. I'm not going to talk when I do the rest of this, and we'll move on. Don't. Now, what I just did is I tinned the tips on both of the connectors. And what I was talking about with polarity being important is this specific connector that I've got on my battery has a flat side and an arch side, if you can see that there. And I have the flat side going on the positive, and it's actually marked positive on your connector, but you want to make sure that you do that properly, because once again, that's going to govern whether or not your camera is going to work. So I have made sure, see, even while I'm talking about it, I've made sure that I almost didn't do it right. I've made sure that I've got my white line on the wire that's going to the positive. And what I was showing you earlier is I put this shrink wrap, one piece on the wire and one piece on each of the leads. And I'll show you that here in a second. And let's get back to it. Now, this is the fun part. If you remember, I told you to put your shrink tubing on each of the wires. I went ahead and put one over both of them so I can create a more secure connection. I've done a couple things off camera. The first thing was I took the AC part of the AC adapter and wired it up the exact same way. And before you shrink these, because you can still heat this up and take it apart, I recommend checking to make sure that it works with your battery system. Now, I didn't show you me wiring up this battery, but it's the exact same process. You clip and strip, tin all the tips, and then you solder in place and use the shrink connector. I recommend that you do your battery first, That way, when you get to this point before you put it together, you can actually test your polarity to make sure it works. I did that. The camera does work with this. I'll show you here in a minute. But you take these and slide these up onto your connectors, and all of these, the connectors and the shrink tubing, can be purchased either at your local RC hobby shop like Radio Control Cars, or you can order it offline. I got ordered offline. I got 10 sets of the connectors for like 20 bucks. You'll need at least 2 sets because you've got the ones that go on the power supplies and one that goes on the camera. So that's 3 connectors, but they come in a complete set. Now if you take a look there, you can see that by gently and passing it through the flame, making sure that it doesn't, that it doesn't catch fire or anything, you can see it shrunk to fit around that connector. Then you take this one, and it may take a little bit of wiggling because you've expanded some stuff, but you slide that up on to that connector like so, and once you run the shrink on it, you have a fairly secure and relatively professional looking rig, provided that you have been very careful with the candle flame or the cigarette lighter flame and have not burned, scorched, or done anything less pleasant like I just did to your shrink tubing. But it's going to conform there and make it very tight. Now the reason you're being so very careful with this is because not only are you applying this to the shrink tubing, but you're also applying it to your main wire. And if you take a look there, that's ready to go. Now I'm going to show you, I'm going to give you a quick demonstration on the camera. I'm going to plug the fake battery in. Slip that in there, and I don't know, I haven't used the Nikon series cameras, so I don't know if they have this kind of arrangement. This uses a fake battery, has a small port for the cord, but I don't honestly know if the Nikons have that. If the Nikons have that, and they're running on 7.4 volts, then this should work exactly the same. I plug in my battery. Now you see, camera is completely separated from everything else, and it should power up. It powered up. I was making sure because that would have been hilarious had I turned that on and the camera just sat there dead. It should power up. God damn. Anyway, so now you see how this works. So now the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to finish this up by applying the shrink wrap. I'm going to move that so it doesn't fall over and burn anything. But so I'm going to finish applying the shrink tubing to my AC power supply, and then when you want to use your AC power supply, all you have to do is plug it in and plug that into your false battery, and you get the same results as your standard AC power supply. Yes, it does void the warranty, but isn't 20 bucks for, well, actually with the battery and the parts, this whole project ran me about 80 bucks. Now that was for 3 of these battery packs. That's 45 plus hours of battery life, an AC adapter, and everything else. Now if you get the Canon brand AC adapter, you're going to spend about $95. You can get the cheap one for 20 bucks, and then all this extra. So give that some thought. Have a good day. Thanks for watching. Look Ma, no hands.